Cooley Region Sports Network. It's been a while. Scotty Gran with my 2021 NFL mock draft. Now, before I get started, I just want to hope that everybody's staying safe and healthy right now. And it looks like we're finally getting through this COVID woods so we can actually see some high school events live. Of course, if you aren't able to do so, we always have everything streaming live. And also, we archive all of our broadcasts here on the Cooley Region Sports Network. So we hope to see you out in the field this year. If not, we always got an outlet for you to watch these games. And we have another outlet for an NFL mock draft, and it's mine. I know a lot of you know that I like to think of myself as an armchair GM. One of my dreams as a kid is to have been in the Packers front office in some capacity, but that didn't come to pass. That's fine. That's how life rolls. But I still enjoy to kind of rate prospects from afar and see what they're going to do at the next level. I've been doing this for a long time in different media outlets, and I know that some of you appreciate my take, and that's fine. And some of you have your own take, and that's what these are for. These are not going to be absolute lockdown. This is what's going to happen during the draft. But however, 99% of these mock drafts are never going to be accurate. Even the so-called experts have their issues when they do these drafts as well. So with that being said, let's get right into it. So at number 1, Jacksonville. I don't think there's any question the Jags are going to take Trevor Lawrence. He is by far the best quarterback prospect to come out since Andrew Luck at 6'5", 230. Can make all the throws. He's great in the pocket, great leadership, intangibles. Has led Clemson to very successful prominence under him and Dabo Swinney. And I tell you what, the guy can do everything that you ask him to do. He can tuck it and run. He can throw on the run. He's accurate. He's got a great arm. I know we didn't really get to see at his pro day too much of what kind of an arm he has, but he throws a very nice deep ball. Out routes are perfect almost. There's a little bit of question in the within 20 yards, the accuracy there, but I mean, if that's really something you're going to question, that's very minuscule in my opinion. So Trevor Lawrence goes number 1, best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars. At number 2, before I unveil this pick, I do want to say I think the Jets and the GM there, Joe Douglas, are doing a masterful job constructing this roster here in New York. Of course, they got Mekhi Becton last year, and I feel that was a home run pick. It looks like it's going to be long term. So you have your franchise left tackle. They traded away Sam Darnold, obviously, to the Carolina Panthers. So I have the Jets taking their franchise quarterback and Zach Wilson from BYU second. And I don't think that's any surprise to anyone, the way that the cards are kind of been laid on the table here the last couple of weeks. Zach Wilson had a great pro day. Again, you don't get to watch a lot of stuff. There's no combine, so these pro days are really what you're going to see for these prospects. But if you put the tape on him, there's been some pro comparisons to Aaron Rodgers, which is interesting to me because I tell you what, he does have kind of a fluidity to his throw like Rodgers would. He is mobile in the pocket. I have to say, though, like Rodgers, and I think everybody would agree, there's some durability concerns there with Zach Wilson. He's been nicked up through his college career to some degree. However, you look at the body of work he had this year at BYU, tremendous numbers, one of the best seasons in the history of college football from a quarterback standpoint. So you can't deny that productivity there, and who knows what he could be at the next level. Kind of takes me back to Fresno State with Derek Carr and Devontae Adams when they were together a couple seasons there. They put up some ridiculous numbers at Fresno. Derek Carr, who's to say if he doesn't get hurt a couple years back, we might be talking about him in a different light as well. But Zach Wilson, nonetheless, is the number 2 pick in the NFL draft this season. So at number 3, here's where it all changes, right? The 49ers about 2 to 3 weeks ago moved up and made a huge trade with Miami, and they gave up quite a bit, and obviously they're going to select a quarterback here. Now, a lot of people thought initially, including some of the rumors I had heard, and I was shaking my head the entire time, because here's the thing. I think it's a mistake to take Mac Jones here at number 3. I don't think Mac Jones is worthy of a top 10 selection. I'm not going to say I'm not going to select him top 10 in this mock, however, but he's definitely not at the tier of the next two quarterbacks on the board, which is Justin Fields and Trey Lance. In my opinion, there's a big gap there, especially from an athleticism standpoint. There is Fields and Lance have him, I mean, tenfold when it comes to that department of the game. So at number 3, with the 49ers going to Justin Fields' second pro day yesterday, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan reportedly were both making the trip. And I do feel all along this is what they were going to do. I think that's kind of a smokescreen to maybe see if someone would trade with them, and maybe they got some additional picks for the trade that they made. Because you know how John Lynch likes to play a little bit of gambit with his hand. He's really good at making moves. So I have the 49ers taking Justin Fields here at number 3. I think it makes a ton of sense. I think that he'd be a great fit in Shanahan's offense. He can make all the throws. The knocks on him to me, I think that they're a little outlandish and over the top. I think, he does have some concerns. I think with maybe reading some defenses from time to time, but that game against Clemson he had, man, I tell you what, that was one of the best games of his career, and it was at the right time. I think that solidified his draft stock a little bit more than people think, and I think you can't pass on him here at 3. Number 4, I have my first trade in the draft, and I think the Falcons would be wise to trade this pick, and here's why. I mean, you can talk all day long. Maybe they should look at their next quarterback. Matt Ryan's getting old. He's 36. I mean, and I think you can get maybe 2 to 3 years still out of him. I know he's got a big contract. They can restructure that. I'm sure he'd be more than willing to help the franchise out in those situations. You could look at maybe, with Julio Jones getting old here, taking a Kyle Pitts. I think you take him before Jamar Chase, in my opinion, but Chase would be another name that you can think of. But I think they trade down. I think the most help that they need is on the defensive side of the ball. Their defense is a sieve. I mean, you can score all the points in the world, right, Packer fans? But if you give up a ton of points, sometimes that's in your detriment. And I think that's been an issue for the Falcons for quite some time. So I say they trade down. Denver is the team that moves up with them, and they are going to take Trey Lance from North Dakota State University. John Elway's been looking for that franchise quarterback for quite some time. I know Drew Lock has been working out with Peyton Manning in the offseason, but sometimes you can't change bad habits. I think Drew Lock has some bad habits. I'm not saying you give up on the guy. Maybe the Broncos don't do this and they have faith in Drew Lock and they stay at 9. Maybe they still get a quarterback at 9. It's very possible. But I feel John Elway at this point is really, really banging the table to get a franchise guy. And if you look at Denver's roster, I think the right guy at the quarterback spot would make the world of difference. Trey Lance could be that guy. He's athletic. Reminds me a lot of Lamar Jackson and how he plays. I mean, the other knock on him, small school talent, hasn't played in the big game. The one showcase game he had this year was kind of a flop. Didn't really look all that great. Looked like he put a lot of pressure on himself in that game to be more than maybe he is in some capacity. But I tell you what, the guy's got a great arm. He's mobile. Some of the tape he put on, he makes some throws that make your jaw drop. So he's got a lot of talent. I think in the right system and the right coaching, Trey Lance could be a pro and maybe an all-pro as an NFL quarterback here in this league. Number 5, the Bengals. Now this is where this gets interesting again, because a rumor has it Joe Burrow is banging the table for the Bengals to draft his boy, Jamar Chase. Now, here's why I feel they shouldn't do that. And you already have Tyler Boyd. You drafted T. Higgins last year. Auden Tate's not a bad option at 3. He's not great. Okay, I'm not saying Auden Tate is the answer. I think they're going to go after another wideout at some point in the draft. Joe Burrow goes down with a knee injury last year. It's an ACL, PCL. That's a scary injury, especially coming off, one of the greatest college football seasons of all time. He walks into Cincinnati, he owns the joint. Everybody respects him as a rookie. Comes out, produces, shows he's the man in Cincinnati, goes down with a devastating injury. What does that mean? You protect your asset. You protect the quarterback. Riley Reef is not the answer to protect your quarterback, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure Minnesota Viking fans would agree with that take. At this stage of his career, he should be playing guard, and it should be left guard, the less mobile of the two, and helping out. They have Jonah Williams. You can slide him to right tackle, and I say you take your left tackle at 20-year-old phenom Penei Sewell. Now, at first, when I was going through this process, especially last month, I had to rewatch some things and kind of really solidify between him and Rashawn Slater who was the better offensive lineman. Okay, those two, in my opinion, are 1 and 1A. Well, the difference between the two is Penei Sewell is 20 years old, and I tell you what, he does play in the run game with a nastier streak than I thought initially. I got to kind of watch a little bit more of him because in the pass game, he's excellent. If you watch him in the pass game, great feet. As a freshman, he played at 350 pounds, and I've never seen a guy that mobile at 350 do the things that he can do. So Penei Sewell, to me, it should be the pick here for the Cincinnati Bengals at number 5. Moving on to number 6, and the Miami Dolphins, another team that has done a masterful job constructing their roster. And I think in a couple years, we aren't going to be talking about New England. We're not going to be talking about, maybe even the Buffalo Bills. I actually think the Miami Dolphins are doing a very masterful job constructing this roster. Not to say they're ready now. I would say it's maybe 2 to 3 years away yet. Maybe it's going to be a year or 2 years, but I don't think they're that far off if they hit a home run in this year's draft. And I think they're going to hit a home run in the best rated tight end prospect since, get this, Kellen Winslow Sr., okay, who changed the game for tight ends forever when he came into the league. It is so long ago for the, oh man, I miss saying this, San Diego Superchargers. And I think Kyle Pitts has that ability to be a game changer. His height, his ability to high point. He's a pretty good run blocker, not the best run blocker, but he's not bad. Okay. Pat Fryermuth from Penn State has him in that capacity. But what he does so well is he's a weapon. You can line him up at receiver, you can put him in the slot, you can put him at tight end, and you have to account for a guy like that. His wingspan is tremendous, one of the longest in the history of the NFL, in the NFL draft going into this. I think it was probably a record, from what I had read, for wide receiver, tight end, any positional player. So that means he's going to get up and get the football, and he's got great hands. He doesn't drop a lot of balls if you watch the tape. And he runs really good routes for a guy his size. He's a freak. You can't pass on a guy here that can really change your dynamic. And you look at Miami, they still have talent at wide receiver. They picked up Will Fuller in free agency. You still have Parker there. So to me, why even add Jamar Chase when you have 2 wide receivers already in the fold? Get Kyle Pitts, get another weapon for Tua, and develop that team even further. At number 7, the second trade of the 2021 CRSN mock draft, I have the New England Patriots, who have been wheeling and dealing this offseason, making another big move to move up with Detroit at number 7. And Detroit's going to get a haul here. I'll talk about Detroit a little bit more when they get to their pick, because I think that's another organization. Brad Holmes has done just an amazing, I think he's doing a great job already. And it's scary to say the Lions are actually being smart with what they're doing this offseason. I have the Patriots getting Mac Jones here from Alabama. I think, now here's the thing with Mac Jones. I kind of knocked him a little bit. I don't think he's a bad prospect. I think he's a good prospect. I don't think that he's a great quarterback prospect like some of these other ones that we're seeing earlier in the draft. Now, Trevor Lawrence is an elite quarterback prospect. Zach Wilson could be elite. You look at Justin Fields, could be elite. Trey Lance is a little bit more of a project, but has the athleticism, could maybe be elite. That's very possible. Mac Jones could be good to great. He reminds me of Chad Pennington. And if a lot of you remember Chad Pennington when he played for the Jets, even for a little bit of time with the Dolphins, the guy did everything good. He didn't do everything great. There was a lot of injuries there with Pennington as well. Who knows what his career could have been. But the Patriots always look for somebody who can just captain the team. Tom Brady is no ordinary man. I think we know that. I think his career has said that he is definitely the greatest quarterback to ever play this game. Not saying Mac Jones is in that same realm, but what I'm saying is Mac Jones can be just good enough and who knows, maybe great, with the right coaching to really lead this Patriot team into the next, I guess you could say, millennium. Who knows? Like maybe he has a long career, maybe he doesn't. But here I think the value is too good for New England to pass up. And who do they have at quarterback? They don't have really any Jarrett Stidham. I mean, to me, that's really not an option. So you have to go get somebody, and I think they will. Making a move somewhere in the draft for a quarterback. It might not be here. Again, this is all a guess, but I do feel New England is in the quarterback market, and they'll be one of those teams that makes a move. Carolina at number 8. Now they have their quarterback in Sam Darnold. They still have some threats at wide receiver on the outside. Of course, Christian McCaffrey. They have a pretty good offensive line. Taylor Moton, one of the better tackles in football. But here's the thing. I mean, you want to solidify that left and right side, right? Or you could play this guy at guard. And I think Rashawn Slater from Northwestern, even though he opted out this year, put on the game tape of him against Ohio State a couple years ago against Chase Young, and he dominated Chase Young. He's dominated pass rushers in the Big Ten in his entire career at Northwestern. Now, again, offensive linemen are unsung heroes, okay? And I feel this offensive line class is one of the best I have seen come out in a long, long time. There's so much talent. Rashawn Slater and Penei Sewell are 1 and 1A in my opinion. And if Carolina, it would be best value here to take Rashawn Slater. You can play him at tackle. You can slide him into guard. You give Sam Darnold another guy to protect him. I don't think that's a bad move here. I think they have a lot of pieces already there offensively. They can add to their offense later in the draft, but I think offensive line is a big need for them. Another thought would maybe be corner here, but I think the value with Slater between Patrick Surtain, and I think Slater's a little bit higher on my board than maybe some, but he's proven time and time again that he can make a difference up front, and that's how you win games in the NFL, is win in the trenches. All right, number 9. So the Falcons moved down, right? So now they're sitting here at number 9, and we talked about defense, and they can't stop anybody. They can score points all day long, but they can't stop anybody. And you look at their roster, and it's mind-boggling to me. They've lost some talent back there too. In the secondary, they've lost some people in free agency on defense, and they really don't have anything that makes you say, "Wow," maybe Grady Jarrett. I think I like Grady Jarrett at defensive tackle. But what else do they have? They really don't have a lot there. They need to rebuild that side of the ball, and they start with a secondary leader in Patrick Surtain II, who I think would be a great value here. He's a leader. He does everything good to borderline great. He's a son of a former Pro Bowler, of course, in Patrick Surtain Sr. And I think he's going to come right in, and I think he's going to make a difference on a defense that really needs it. I mean, you look at the South, and the only team that has an established team coming back is Tampa Bay with 22 starters coming back, which is unheard of. You look at Carolina, new quarterback. You look at the Saints, Drew Brees retires, new quarterback. Carolina, new quarterback. But of all the teams, I think, you look at the skill positions, Carolina has a lot of weapons. So does Atlanta, right? So Atlanta's got Matt Ryan, but their defense can't stop anybody. Makes sense to me. Take Patrick Surtain. Start rebuilding that side of the ball. If you want to address a quarterback, you can address it next year, especially if you get an extra pick here from Denver, which I would assume they would get an extra first to move up to number 4. So that would be something to entertain. There is some decent quarterback prospects for next year's draft. Not as good as this year. We'll talk about that at the end. But I think Atlanta would be wise to take Patrick Surtain. All right, moving on now to the 10th pick in the 2021 CRSN NFL mock draft. And I got another trade here. And again, the Lions. How about that? The Lions are making moves, people. Who would have thought we would have said that? Brad Holmes has walked in there as the former director of pro scouting at the Los Angeles Rams. And the guy that drafted Aaron Donald, the guy that drafted Cooper Kupp, the guy that wanted obviously Jared Goff and made a trade for him with Matthew Stafford and got 2 additional first-round picks, which I think is a great trade. Now, here's the thing. Jared Goff, he kind of gets raked over the coals, okay? He's not a bad quarterback, people. He's not. He's not a great quarterback. He has the potential to be really good, I think, in the right system. However, he's going to Detroit now that's rebuilding and has no weapons. So, he's kind of in a bad spot in that sense. But here's the thing. You draft a guy like Jamar Chase here at 10. You still get a guy that's an impact player at the 10th spot and probably didn't give up a lot to move up with the Dallas Cowboys. You probably gave up maybe one of those number one picks, and maybe a third. And to me, for Jamar Chase, and you have that draft capital, not a bad move in my opinion. I mean, you're really not wasting anything by doing that. You have your quarterback, no wide receiver talent. Got to make the move here. Jamar Chase goes to Detroit at 10 here in a trade with the Dallas Cowboys. Man, who would have thought that I would be talking about the Lions making calculated, smart moves in the NFL draft? Where Matt Millen's not on the phone anymore, ladies and gentlemen. He's in a broadcast booth. But they did take a wide receiver for what that's worth. But he's a really good one. I mean, who knows? Maybe it might pan out. Again, I think Brad Holmes is doing a good job as the GM currently in Detroit. And who knows? We might be talking about the Detroit Lions as being a NFC perennial power here. And I know it's early, but you never know. And I think Brad Holmes is already putting his stamp on this team, and we'll have to see what they do in this year's draft. They're one of the more intriguing teams to watch this year, in my opinion. And now the Giants at number 11. Now I thought about Kwity Paye here, and um, I feel Kwity Paye should be a top 10 pick. Okay, if you put the film on and you watch him, he's explosive. He gets around the edge, but the Giants covet so much to help Daniel Jones, and they don't want that pick to not, garner the weight that they feel Jones needs to have in that organization. So you get him another weapon in Devonta Smith. And I mean, Devonta Smith to me, best route runner in this draft, Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, he turned it on in the national championship game. He really showed why he's one of those special talents. I feel he's better than Jalen Waddle, not by much. I think they're two different receivers. I think they give a different skill set to both sides of the ball. Really, I think they have that Jalen Waddle type receiver already in Sterling Shepard. So I don't feel that that's something of a need here at this point to draft another guy like Waddle. I think you need to get a guy like Smith that can get open, really help out maybe the intermediate game. Though he has the ability to go deep, he's really good in the intermediate game, getting first downs when necessary, 10-yard routes. He cuts on a dime. The guy's a tremendous route runner. I think that helps out Daniel Jones. They have a lot of weapons there in New York. That'd be another one to add. I think it's too tempting for the Giants to pass on a talent like that at number 11. Number 12, the Eagles, who traded down with the Dolphins. And here's the thing. I think the Eagles were smart by doing that. I think, they're still going to get a receiver. I have them taking Jalen Waddle from Alabama here at 12, so back-to-back Alabama wideouts. But Jalen Reagor was a disappointment last year. I think there was a lot of injuries kept him off the field. Arcega-Whiteside is a deep threat. I don't know if he's going to be anything more than that. But Jalen Waddle is so electric with the ball in his hands. You still have the mystery regarding Zach Ertz, if he's going to be there or not. I think the Eagles will address that later, and you'll see that in my mock draft for the second round that I'll post after we get this up and live and going. But there's a lot of things that the Eagles need. They need defense. They need corner. But I think that the allure of another weapon is, to help Jalen Hurts and his development there at Philadelphia is just too big to pass up. And Jalen Waddle here, I think, is the pick. And it makes sense, in my opinion. So the Chargers now at number 13. I don't think there's any question that offensive line is a big, big concern. So you want to protect Justin Herbert, right? I think, they picked up Brian Bulaga last year. He had a pretty decent season. I know he got hurt. He has a tendency to do that. I think Packer fans know that from dealing with him in the past. But I think you add another tackle here, and I think the guy, some people have been mocking Christian Darrisaw here, but I like Tevin Jenkins more. And I'm going to mock him here to the Chargers. He plays just nasty. You put the tape on, and he's one of those guys. If I'm going to go to a dark alley and I need a group of guys to protect me in that dark alley, I think Tevin Jenkins would be one of those guys because he is just a mauler, and he's a good pass blocker, even better run blocker in the run game. And I know with Austin Eckler, Los Angeles is going to want to run the ball a little bit more. I think I said San Diego, they're Los Angeles. I think everybody does that. But the Chargers, they got to solidify again the bookends. And you can always get another left tackle next year. Maybe you sign a guy and move Jenkins out because let's face it, Balaga's not going to be there probably too much longer. And there's that flexibility there. Jenkins can play left tackle, I think, or if you want to take a chance and move Balaga there, Balaga's had experience there. So that's something for San Diego to decide. But I mean, Los Angeles, I did it again. But Tevin Jenkins is just a mauler, and I think he would be a great fit in Los Angeles, and I think they take him here at 13. All right, Viking fans, here you go, number 14. So, biggest need, I think, offensive line. I think a lot of the Viking fans would agree with that. They've solidified one of the tackle positions. I think Garrett Bradbury is going to be a very good player. I think that he had his ups and downs last year, but he's a good athlete. He'll figure it out, and I think he'll be just fine there. You got to protect Kirk Cousins. They're probably going to go quarterback sometime down the road here. Probably next year's draft would be my guess. I don't think you do it now, obviously, and I think a lot of Viking supporters would agree with that. But Elijah Vera Tucker, to me, could be a special talent, and he's one of the best offensive line prospects in this draft, and he might be the best. Period. I mean, the guy is durable. The guy can play tackle. He can play guard. He can play center. I mean, watch some of the tape of him this season getting to the second level, and how you can tell an offensive lineman could be special, in my opinion, is especially in the interior, counters and traps, sweeps. If the offensive guard is one of the first guys opening the hole for your running back, you got something there. And the quickness of Elijah Vera Tucker just pops off on tape. There's been comparisons to Zach Martin from Notre Dame, which honestly, it's not a bad comparison when you watch him. And Zach Martin's had a great career with Dallas. Elijah Vera Tucker could very well be one of the best offensive lineman prospects in this draft. And if Minnesota were to take him at 14, I think that's a great move, in my opinion. And again, he can play tackle for you. I know a lot of Viking fans are like, well, we need tackles. Well, put him at tackle. I mean, it doesn't hurt to move him there if he can play there. I think he's a better guard, but I tell you what, I mean, the guy can play, and that's bottom line. I know Viking fans are going to be like, well, we've had our issues with some USC players in the past. Well, I think this guy is. I think this guy's pretty battle tested. I think he'll come in and he'll do a good job in the NFL. At number 15 now, the Lions, who get this pick the Cowboys, excuse me, who get this pick via the Lions. Via the Patriots are finally on the board. And Stephen Jones, again, not going to let his dad run the draft. He's running the draft. He's the guy for football operations here. And I think that, a lot of people would maybe look at this and say, are they going to add another weapon here to help out Dak? I don't think they need to add. I mean, they could add another offensive lineman. Very possible. I don't think that they're going to, though. I think that corner is more of an issue. And I know from what I've read and what I've heard, and there's some conflicting reports on J.C. Horn from South Carolina. Now, J.C. Horn, to me, he's more confident than what he plays on tape. I think, though, that his pro day and what he ran and some of the skill drills that he showed, some of the scouts really rose his stock high enough for them to be comfortable taking him in this spot. I think J.C. Horn, when you listen to his interviews, is very confident in his abilities. I think that fits right in with the Dallas Cowboys, to be quite honest. And I think, honestly, he's not afraid to mix it up. He'll get in there and he talks the talk. He can back it up. He's a good athlete. I think it wouldn't be a bad pick here. I don't think it's the best corner selection that you could have at 15, but I still think that Dallas would covet that confidence, that speed. He's got great recovery speed if you watch some of the tape. And he's played against some top talent in the SEC. So, you can't go wrong. I don't think. Well, you could. I mean, it's the draft. You never know. But it wouldn't be a terrible selection here to take J.C. Horn. So now the Cardinals. They're an interesting team too because I think that they're a couple players away from being one of the best teams in the NFC, period. And Kyler Murray, until he got hurt last year, was looking like an MVP caliber quarterback. He gets nicked up. You could tell he wasn't the same in the playoffs, or actually they didn't make the playoffs, excuse me. But you get nicked up, you miss the playoffs. You got the weapon last year. Nuke Hopkins was a big addition to that roster. They still have a lot of weapons with Christian Kirk. I really like their receivers in general. I think their O-line could use some help, but I think that more of an issue is corner. You got Murphy Jr. on one side, who um, some people say he could be a perennial number one corner. I don't think he is. I think he's a good number two in the league, and I think you can get a number one corner in this draft. I really like Greg Newsome the second from Northwestern. I actually was kind of hoping that he'd be there for Green Bay at 29. I don't think he's going to be. I think the way that he's played against some top Big Ten opponents, going one on one with Rondale Moore, Rashad Bateman, he held his own against both of those guys, and he's looked good against quality competition throughout his career. Good tackler, got a good head for the game, not afraid to mix it up. He's got really good football sense. He's got instincts at that corner position. I actually think he might end up being one of the guys in this draft we talk about afterwards, being a great selection. And I think Greg Newsome the second goes to Arizona, and they get a really good baller here. Who's this? Two Northwestern players in the first round. That tells you the kind of talent they're getting there now. And man, I tell you what, Pat Fitzgerald's always been a great coach, but now he's getting first round talent in the NFL draft. To me, that says a lot about what he's doing with that program. Number 17, the Raiders. Now they're interesting. I love the Raiders. Chucky, and then I've always been a big Mike Mayock guy. I thought, to me, I know Mel Kiper is the some say the GOAT when it comes to doing these, but I was really, really high on Mike Mayock's takes of talent, and I thought it was a smart move for the Raiders to put him in the front office. And I think they reached on Clelin Ferrell. I think a lot of people would agree with that. I think that was a player that they both liked, and he had a good college career, but to take him at 4 was that was a big reach. That a couple years back, and I think Mike Mayock honestly is a little bit on the hot seat this year. If you look at it from a GM standpoint or football operations guy, we all know Chucky's calling the shots, but at 17 here, they're going to get a quality player. Got some character concerns, but he's going to be an instant leader on that defense. And Micah Parsons, the Raiders have a pretty decent linebacker core already. You add him to the mix, and the front seven for the Raiders now, for the Las Vegas Raiders, are that could be very interesting with the athleticism they have there. I thought about mocking Kwity Paye here. Which would be a good move for them as well. But Micah Parsons' ceiling for talent is higher, I think, than Kwity Paye. I like Kwity Paye. Again, I think he should be a top 10 pick. But I also think Micah Parsons should be a top 10 pick in this draft. But there's so much offensive talent in the quarterback room, just going ballistic. These guys are going to, unfortunately, move down, and some of these teams are probably happy about that. And the Las Vegas Raiders are getting a baller here when it comes to Micah Parsons. And at 18, the Dolphins running the card to the podium, because guess what? They need a pass rush, right? I think the Dolphins, under Brian Flores, played very well on defense, better than in general, a lot better than a lot of people expected. I think they're a team to watch this year for more improvement, and I think they take Kwity Paye here from Michigan. It makes a ton of sense. They need a pass rush. Kwity Paye is by far the best pass rusher on the board. You get him here at 18. That's a ton of value for a team that I think is making really strong strides in improving their roster. And this would be another feather in the cap of the Miami front office to get Kwity Paye here at 18. Oh, the Washington football team. Oh man, I tell you what, did they bite some people in the backside last year? They made the playoffs, for crying out loud. It was just crazy. And now they pick up Fitzmagic, the story of Alex Smith, and him coming back last year, and lost promises in that quarterback position. Alex Smith played well and led them to the playoffs. I was actually surprised they let him go, but maybe not. He had a high cap number. You need to put that money elsewhere. They've got to pay some of these talented defensive linemen that they've gotten in the last couple of drafts. But here's the thing. You look at that roster, and I think they need more athletic prospects at the linebacking position. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame, to me, is one of the unsung gems in this draft. The guy is so freakishly talented, athletic wise. He's got great read and react instincts. He actually looks like a guy that can cover a tight end in coverage Not as good as Zaven Collins, and I'll get to that in just a minute. But I tell you what, he's up there. He needs to work on maybe his technique when it comes to rushing the passer a little bit. I think he struggles when he gets locked up by an offensive lineman to get around the guy. But I think in Washington with what they're building, and you got Chase Young there, obviously, and then I believe Deron Payne is there too. I mean, those two guys right there are just maulers. And then you get a guy like you get a guy in here from Notre Dame and Usa Kuramora who could be a big impact player for the Washington football team and team to watch. Quietly building a really good roster in Washington. Who another one that who would have thought it, right? But anyways, the Washington football team adds to that roster on defense. Oh, the Chicago Bears at number 20. Ugh, Ryan Pace. I know a lot of Bears fans will agree with this. He's done a poor job. He's really just this roster. He's done a couple of good things in free agency. Okay, I mean Robinson obviously is a good pickup. They've made some good draft picks. Uh, you know, I just Kyle Fuller's gone now. There's some holes on the defense. You could look at corner here. I don't think that would be a bad move, but I think offensive line has really been an issue for them for quite some time. James Daniels and Cody Whitehair, I like both of those two quite a bit, but the tackle spot is still rough, and you got to protect your $35 million investments between Nick Foles and Andy Dalton. All right. Kudos to Ryan Pace there. But Christian Darrisaw to me would be a great selection here for the Bears. And Ryan Pace, we might not be talking about him next year as the general manager for the Chicago Bears. Honestly, I thought he'd be let go this offseason. I still think Matt Nagy has value as a coach. You can't really blame him for the talent that's there in Chicago. I think you got to run with the hand you're dealt with. David Montgomery looks like he's going to be what everybody thought, including myself, coming out of Iowa State. Looks like he's going to be a good back in the NFL. Allen Robinson's coming back on a franchise tender. Who knows if they can sign him long term? We'll have to see how that goes. I thought Cole Kmet was a good draft pick last year from Notre Dame. I thought he was coming on near the end of the season. I think he's going to pan out. Hopefully for Bears fans, he does. But the offensive line's been a problem, and I think you got to start fixing it at some point. You can get corner in the second round. I think it's deep enough to where they can address that. They did well in the second round last year, obviously, oh man, I think that they can do it again, and I think the offensive tackle is more of a pressing need here for the Chicago Bears, in my opinion. All right, the Colts at 21. Now here's a team that really solidified the running attack with Jonathan Taylor. He really came on second half of the season. Looks like he's a franchise caliber back. So again, the first thing you think of with the Colts is, well, we got to solidify the offensive line. They lost one of their perennial tackles to retirement, Anthony Costanzo. So obviously you want to look at that as possibly a hole to fill here. I don't think they're going to do that in round one. I think round two, there's a lot of value that you can get a guy, plug him in on the right side, and you'll still be fine. I mean, that offensive line is just, I tell you what, there's a ton of talent there. And the Colts have done a masterful job, I think, constructing this roster. Picking up Carson Wentz in the offseason for peanuts, that could end up panning out. I mean, Carson Wentz, here's the thing. He flamed out in Philadelphia. Before he tore that ACL, though, he looked like he was going to be a franchise quarterback. And I think you can't give up on a guy, and he's gonna go back to his old coach, and maybe they'll rekindle some magic there in Indianapolis. So I think you got to get him some more weapons. I think Michael Pittman, to me, had a good rookie season, not great. He really came on second half of the year. T.Y. Hilton, not the same guy that we seen 5 years ago. He's starting to show his age a little bit, and I think that if you look at Rashad Bateman and the talent that he brings to the table at wide receiver, here's the thing about Bateman, and this is one of the points I want to make in this year's draft. I think Rashad Bateman is just as good as the top three receivers that were taken earlier in this draft. And some people might disagree with that take, but if you put the tape on and if you watch the guy work, I know he opted out this year, but the guy can run routes. He's got deceptive speed. He's got great hands. He high points the football. He challenges for every play. He can run block down the field. I mean, to me, he's an all-around wide receiver. Some mocks have him going later than this. I know that some mocks, and I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that he's there for the Green Bay Packers when they draft. But we'll have to see on that. I just think the talent's too big here for the Colts to pass on, and I think they need another weapon. And I think Rashad Bateman would be a great selection for the Colts here at 21. The Tennessee Titans. Oh man, I tell you what, a team that they're old school, man. They're in the trenches. They're tough. They like to run the football with Derrick Henry. Ryan Tannehill has proven that he is a leader at the quarterback spot. They've got receiving threats. Wouldn't be a bad idea to add another one here. Of course, they lost Corey Davis to the Jets in free agency, so I thought about that. But here's the thing: I think they need corner more than anything else. I think that their defense is predicated on man coverage, blitzing from the outside, locking down wideouts. I think Eric Stokes fits their system here. I think Eric Stokes is a good football player. I don't know if he's a great football player. Maybe in the right system, you can kind of unlock a little bit more of that potential. Coming out of high school, he's a 4-star recruit, great athlete. Great recovery speed, good tackler. He does a lot of things good, not great. I think going to Tennessee, that fits kind of the system they run. I think he's the type of player that they can develop. They've proven to do that through the years. And I think Eric Stokes would be a great fit in Tennessee here at 22. Number 23, the Jets back on the board. They took Zach Wilson earlier. Joe Douglas and the front office of the Jets probably looking for something to help out Kyle Wilson here. And I wouldn't be surprised if they took an offensive lineman to solidify the right side of the offensive line. Very possible. However, I think there's more value in taking a running back here. And I think Najee Harris from Alabama would be a wise selection. It would give Wilson maybe somebody to kind of go to when he needs to, take the pressure off of him a little bit. You can get an offensive lineman later in the draft. I keep saying it, but the position's so deep at tackle, guard, center, maybe a little bit thin after the top two. But I tell you what, the values there that they can wait and take Najee Harris here and give Zach Wilson kind of a security blanket for him to develop and another guy to lean on that offense. So Najee Harris is the pick for me here for the Jets at 23. Number 24, the Pittsburgh Steelers, linebacker right? They lost Bud Dupree. Man, I can't think of a better fit than Zaven Collins. I think Zaven Collins to me. I thought about Jalen Phillips here from Miami, just because of his pass rushing ability on the edge. But Zaven Collins is just one of those guys that comes around. He's underrated as a talent here in this year's draft. He can rush the passer. He's great at read and react. He can cover tight ends and running backs, ladies and gentlemen. This guy reminds me a little bit of Derek Brooks. And I know that, well, then why is he at number 24? Well, again, some of this defensive talent is going to get pushed down, and you don't say that very often. This is an offensive draft this year, and a lot of the best defensive players are going to drop. And Zaven Collins, unfortunately, is probably going to fall a little bit further than he should. And I think that he should be taken higher than 24, but the Steelers are getting great value here in Zaven Collins, who I think, when it's all said and done, could be one of the best players coming out of this year's draft. And you put on the tape, watch the guy work, phenomenal in coverage. Great instincts. He's got a nose for the football. You can't teach that, and that would be a great fit for the Steelers here at number 24. Number 25, the Jags back on the board, and they take one of my other favorite players in this draft, Trayvon Mulrig from TCU. They need a leader in the secondary. I think Mulrig would be a guy that come in and really solidify that spot. I just feel like that his ability to get in the box, get dirty, great recovery speed for a safety. He's one of those guys that baits quarterbacks into making bad throws on third down too. If you kind of watch him through his career at TCU, he's very instinctive when it comes to, and you can tell that he really scouts these quarterbacks he goes against. And Trayvon Mulrig to me would be a steal for the Jaguars here at number 25. So Trayvon Mulrig to the Jags at number 25 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Good pick, in my opinion, if he's there for them. Now the Browns, and we'll talk about this after the first round. The selection that I made was before the Jadeveon Clowney pickup. yesterday, or I should say, depending on when we get this up, just a couple days ago. And to me, pairing him with Myles Garrett is going to be a scary combo if Clowney, actually plays up to his potential. So we'll see if that comes to pass, but that's kind of a scary defense if you look at the Cleveland Browns. And I have them here taking Gregory Rousseau, the defensive end from Miami. That was my original pick. Now, here's the thing on Rousseau that I'm going to talk about here. I don't feel he's a first round talent. And he, to me, takes plays off. He has a little bit of laziness to his game. The talent's there. I think he could be good in the NFL. I know he was talked about as a top 10 pick 2 years ago going into this draft, but he hasn't really shown on a consistent basis that he's worthy of a first round selection. I think he's got some work to do. I think he needs to put in a little bit more time on his craft in the NFL. I think Cleveland would have been a good fit for him to go there and learn from Myles Garrett and learn from some of those some of those defenders that I feel that Cleveland's built a very talent laden roster, and he'd be a good addition there and probably could learn and maybe develop. At this time, I have him as the pick going to Cleveland, but we'll talk about that here once we finish this first round mock, because we put a lot of time into getting this set up and the graphics and everything else for you guys. So we're going to keep the pick as it is right now. I'll discuss what I feel is going to happen now with that move after we're done with this first round. So Gregory Rousseau to the Browns at this time at 26. All right, number 27, the Ravens. I think, again, you need to add weapons for Lamar Jackson here. And Hollywood Brown, to his credit, pretty good rookie year, dinged up. That's the thing in college, that he was dinged up, and he got dinged up in the pros. He missed a decent amount of games last year. When he's on the field, electric with the football, but you still need an outside presence, a guy that can go high point the football, can do everything that you ask of a wide receiver. And I think Terrence Marshall from LSU is a good fit here for the Ravens. I think that's good value here to help the Ravens in that offense develop a little bit more character, a little bit more talent. I think he's a good character guy. I think that he's a hard worker. He definitely has shown in big games that he can produce, and I don't feel that that's going to really knock him in his draft stock here. And I think it'd be a good value pick for the Ravens at 27. Terrence Marshall Jr. from LSU, the wide receiver. The Saints at number 28. The Saints are interesting. They don't really, if you look at their roster, need a ton of things. They could use another corner. I think linebackers screaming at you here, though. I mean, they lost Alex Anzalone to free agency. He was kind of their leader in the middle of the field, and I think Jamin Davis from Kentucky, the most natural linebacker in this draft, in my opinion, especially in the middle, would be a great selection here for the Saints. Sideline to sideline. Very quick, very instinctive, makes good plays on the football, can rush the quarterback, very good timing on his blitzes if you watch the tape. He's pretty good in coverage, not great, but good enough to put him in maybe in a higher tier when it comes to that with some of the other linebackers coming out this year. There's a lot of talk about Nick Bolton. Chaz Surratt is another guy. I don't think they're first round talents in my opinion, but they both have value. But Jamin Davis is a potential first round talent. I think the Saints have a big need here to fill, and I think they take him at number 28. Oh, number 29. It's the Packers, right? Hmm? No, I got him trading down. I think Brian Gutekunst, sees that he could probably get some more picks in this year's draft. They already have 10. I get that, but here's the thing: they've got some things they need to solidify, and offensive line is one. I think middle linebacker, even though Barnes played well last year, and I think Kamal Martin might end up being a starter in Green Bay. He played well when he got his opportunities. I don't think the Packers have drafted bad. I think, again, Jair Alexander a couple years ago was a home run. Rashad Gary's proving that maybe he will make it in the NFL. And Darnell Savage played one heck of a second half of the regular season going into the playoffs last year. I felt like he developed very well as a safety, and I think they have. I think they'd be comfortable trading back a couple spots. Kansas City moves up here at 29 because I think they have a fear that the guy that they want at the offensive line, which maybe is the same guy the Packers are thinking about here at 29, and they have a lot of different options, and I'll go into that when they pick at 31. But I think the Chiefs move up and take Liam Eichenberg from Notre Dame. Obviously, you let Eric Fisher go, and you let the other guy go on the other side. I mean, both those guys, a lot of cap money. They had to move on from that. Both talented offensive linemen, no question, but a lot of money tied up in two tackle spots, which obviously was an aging position as well. If you look at the ages of both those guys in their high 30s, you solidify the interior of the offensive line. Time to rebuild the outside. Liam Eichenberg would be a good selection here. I think he's the most steady tackle in the draft. He does everything good to not borderline great. I think he's going to have a good NFL career. I think it was disappointing that you didn't get to see him work out at a pro day. Of course, he missed that due to COVID. That probably would have helped solidify his first round stock. Maybe even moved him up a little bit higher because I do feel he's very talented, and I think Kansas City would be getting a great value here at 29 in Liam Eichenberg from Notre Dame. All right, the Buffalo Bills, circle the wagons, right? The old Chris Berman saying. But I think you can circle the wagons a little bit around the Buffalo Bills. They've done a good job building this roster. Josh Allen's turned into one of the top five quarterbacks in football. Stephon Diggs coming in last year, having the year he did. Offensive line's decent. They could probably add a piece there, especially on the inside. I think their tackle spots are pretty good, but the interior could use some work. But man, I mean, the thing that they need, I think, more than anything else. And here's the thing: you look at Buffalo's roster. Do they really need a lot of things? I think they've done a good job building it. You could look at linebacker here; would be another thing to think about, inside linebacker. But I don't think the value's there right now to take a Nick Bolton, to take a Chaz Surratt. I think they're second round talents. But Asante Samuel Jr. here at number 30 makes a ton of sense to me for the Bills, who could use another corner, especially a slot corner, a guy that's got an eye for the football. He plays a lot like his dad did. Asante Samuel was a Pro Bowler for the Patriots. If you guys don't know that, I'm sure a lot of you do that follow football. But man, the guy was a great player in the time he played in New England. And I think his son could have a similar NFL career in the right system. And I think Buffalo would be a great fit for him at number 30. All right, so now the Packers finally. Now people are going to ask, well, what'd they trade him for? What'd they trade down for? Well, you pick up an extra third this year and you get a third next year. I think the Packers are going to be very, let's just say they're gonna I think in the second and the third round you're gonna see them trading up maybe to get some guys that they want. They have 10 picks. You can trade compensatory picks this year. I think the Packers are going to be very active on day two. I think day one, however, the board has so much value, they don't really need to stretch and move up for anybody, in my opinion. Let the board fall, take the best player available. And this might change. We'll talk about that because this is the Cleveland domino scenario to me. But Caleb Fairley from Virginia Tech would be a steal at this point in the draft for the Packers if he was sitting there at 31. You pair him with Jair Alexander. I think you have two great man coverage corners, and Caleb Fairley, to me, talent wise, is the best corner in this draft. I think the talent is better than Patrick Surtain. Now, Patrick Surtain does two things better than Caleb Fairley. He tackles better, and I think he plays zone coverage better than Caleb Fairley. But here's the thing: the Packers, and here's the other question mark. Joe Barry's scheme. What does he run? Okay, I know that they're going to go to a more traditional, maybe 4-3, 4 down lineman style. So you can look at Christian Barmore here possibly, which wouldn't be a bad selection either. I actually think he is a first round talent. Should be a first round talent. He's not in my mock. And unfortunately for him, that's just how it rolls when I did the board. But I could see the Packers taking him here, honestly, Christian Barmore. But if Caleb Fairley's there, you can't pass on him. And I think that would be a steal because let's face it, guys, Kevin King's on a 1-year prove it deal. And it wouldn't surprise me if Fairley outplayed him, in the offseason workouts and he's the starter and King's playing slot. Okay. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if that were to happen, if the Packers took him here at 31. But we'll talk about that. I think a lot of that changes now with the Jadeveon Clowney signing with Cleveland. That might change. We'll talk about that here in a minute. All right, and the Bucks. The Bucks really don't need nothing, right? They're just adding to an already talent-laden roster. They have 22 returning starters. Obviously, the favorite to win the Super Bowl this year again would be the Bucks. I would say them, and of course, the Kansas City Chiefs would be 1-1A. If you were to look at rosters coming back and getting Jalen Phillips here would be just a tremendous add to a roster that has already great pass rushers. You might want to rotate those guys going forward, though. It would be great value here. Man, I tell you, they already have a lot of talent rushing the pass from the outside. Adding another weapon on the defense, they could go corner. That would be another option. Maybe they take another linebacker here. You got some age going on. Devin White's fantastic, but you got some age going on in the other positions in the linebacking core. Maybe you play Phillips at outside linebacker. He could do that. He can come off the edge. Not great in coverage. That could be taught, though. So Jalen Phillips, the pick for me at number 32 to round out somewhat the first round here in the 2021 Cooley Region Sports Network mock draft.